Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, wherever you are in our fine world. Welcome to the UK Wrestling Figure Podcast. As always, my name's Tom Finkill, alongside my long-suffering compadre, the one and only Mr. Steve Taylor.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night. Like you said, it's funny. I hope it isn't good night for people. I hope people don't listen to this to go to sleep. That would be that would be a bit of a kick in the nuts. But,
it's the ultimate insult, isn't it? It's the ultimate insult when you're the podcast that people float to when we get to sleep.
Do you know what? I go to sleep listening to the JR podcast, and not because I actually find it boring. For some reason I just listen to that when I'm in bed, and it takes me about 3 nights to get through an episode because about half an hour in, then I'm asleep. You see. But
that's it. It's the southern drawl. It's what it is. It's that relaxing southern drawl.
Do you know what? Genuinely, it's more relaxing than the Bruce one. You know, I listen to it all the time to go to sleep. It's an interesting one to do. But yeah, it works for me. Not that it's boring, JR and Conrad, if you're listening. So interestingly enough, Tom, just so we don't usually start off in this way, but a couple of purchases that I've picked up this week that I just wanted to have a look at. Have you managed to pick anything up this week, or have you had a relatively quiet week fig-wise?
Relatively quiet week, seen as it is the week, for anyone that's checking back over the archives, this week is the week that a lot of the lockdown got alleviated here in the UK. So we got the opportunity to go and visit different bubbles within our family. So this particular week has been spent going and seeing mums and dads, visiting with family and that sort of thing. Obviously, still at a socially distant measures. Please don't send us any messages about that. But yes, we've just been visiting people. So I've not been doing a lot of collecting this week. Doing a little bit of research as to what's coming out, what's new, what's been sort of the main ideas for reveals, and having a look at some unreleased stuff as well. I was doing a little bit of research into unreleased stuff, but not acquired anything. So tell us, mate, what have you picked up?
Well, I went and picked up the long-awaited SummerSlam Liz. So that's quite a cool thing. It's a funny one, really, with Elizabeth figures, because I did address it last week about, really, it is just a doll that we're buying here. But the thing is with it...
It's not a doll. It's an action figure. It's still an action figure. It's still real to us. It's still an action figure.
Liz figures, it's a funny one. Liz figures don't seem to do massively well in the UK. And I wondered, the original one came out that you said was... Did you say it was supposed to be in the Legends line, and then it came out after that, the one in the white dress?
That's right, yeah. So that's the white dress Liz that eventually came out in one of the Elite Collection series. But that should have been in the Legends line, and that's the one that sort of evaded me. They did that one, and then they did the Then Now Forever Liz, which is like the greeny type dress.
And that's the thing. That one was $7.99 in Home Bargains or B&M for a long time. There was so many of them. They were getting rid of it in Entertainer, and so it's one of those where I went. I know it's the first week of it, but I went on Monday to get the Liz from Smiths, and they had it in stock at Smiths, but they had it in. They had loads of them in, and I looked at it and thought, you know what? I'm talking probably 2 or 3 pegs worth of this Liz, and I just kind of thought, I think this might be another peg warmer,
Oh no!
So yeah, because I was going to buy a couple. I thought, well, I'll buy one for my Lucy collection because the majority of my elites are Lucy, but I've got a couple that I keep in box, and certainly at the moment I'm kind of doubling up on a lot of the stuff because it seems to be getting rarer and rarer. So I picked up Liz, and I thought, should I pick 2 up? And I just bought the one. I opened it up, and I'm kind of hedging my bets that they'll probably be $7.99 in B&M or Home Bargains.
You reckon is that the officious consensus of the new wrestling figure guru? It's going to be $7.99 Home Bargains.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's just weird. There just seems to be. I was just surprised. I thought there'd be not very many of them, and there were shed loads. And I understand it's it's literally the first day they came out that I went and got it. But yeah, so we'll see. But I think quite possibly there'll be loads and loads and loads of them. There was nothing in the way of Rick Rude or anything. Do you know if that Rick Rude, the SummerSlam Rick Rude, is a USA or? I didn't think it was. I thought the Chase might be.
So from that particular series, from that particular series, and it's interesting to ask you this question because I've not asked you. So taking a trip out to Smith's, which is probably the UK's biggest toy store right now, did they have anything else from that particular series? So what we've seen on the website, obviously we've seen the Miss Elizabeth, we've seen AJ Styles, and we've seen the Fiend Bray Wyatt. Did Smith's have any of the others in stock? Did you notice anything?
They
or
had,
with you being yeah.
They had AJ.
Okay. So they had the AJ from the range, but there are some massive notable omissions, as always. As recent history sort of has proclaimed, that we are only getting portions of each of the different series. So we're missing out on the Visceras, we're missing out on Rude, and the opportunity to get the Chase Rick Rude as well. So these big gaping holes that are missing from that particular range. But it's interesting to find out as well this week that from the previous series, which had the Christian and the Christian Chase, they've just started popping up at the Entertainer. So could it be that we see the other figures start appearing at the rival branch of the Entertainer and knocking Smiths on the head when it comes to figures? It's got to be down to Mattel as to what they're packing. That's what they're sort of holding back on, because I'm sure you've not got a guy from Smith sat in an office going, no, we're not having Rick Rude, we're not having this, we're not. He'll want to know whatever he gets that's going to sell. And if you've got 3 times more Miss Elizabeths than any other character, then it just depletes the market completely. What's the point?
I think they're doing it possibly just to annoy the British collectors. I think that's the script with Mattel. I think they for some reason just seem to go, well, do you know what? We won't send all the good ones. We'll give them like one. Now, to be fair, I'm happy to get an Elizabeth, but I did want the Rude. I'm not bothered about the others. They're not my era, but it really winds me up, because then they become so expensive on eBay or on the Facebook groups, and you go to America and these things are $20 toys. They should be easily accessible to the UK collectors. Come on, Mattel, sort it out.
Come on, Mattel. This is the point of our podcast. This is what we wanted to do. We wanted to instill a little bit of light within the UK collecting scene and let them know, if anybody from Mattel does venture to have a listen, as to our frustration that we can't actually be completists. And that's the big thing for me, is being a completist within a series. Is if you can't get hold of them all, then what's the point in getting hold of any of them? That's my motto and my mentality. So, it is a big thing. And ultimately, I will have to look at some of our smaller independent traders, whether it be Wrestle HQ or Wrestle Trader or Toys and Masks. Lots of very, very good ones that are out there to pick up this particular line, because I need that Rick Rude.
Speaking of Wrestle HQ.
Well, that's very interesting.
Indeed, yes. Speaking of Wrestle HQ, yesterday I received a great little package from Johnny up at Wrestle HQ with a Red Rooster and who was the other one I got? Hillbilly Jim. So yeah, there's quite a few legends went on his site the other day, and I went on and some quite reasonably priced stuff. So I bought a couple of bits. I just got pipped to the post. I was seething really, but I got pipped to the post on a Royal Rumble Macho Man. The running sort of 1991.
Seething inside me. It'd been aching inside me.
Yeah, the thing is as well with them, they were all Lucy as well, which is great, because what kind of really grinds my gears is, let's say for example you find a Macho Man. In fact, I'll give you a real life example. Sherry. So at a toy fair, I found a Sherry boxed for about 30. I think it was 36 quid or 38 quid I paid for Sherry boxed. But I haven't wanted to open it because it's gonna devalue it. And it's when you find them Lucy, it kind of helps me in a way, because I'm going, well, I don't need to unbox it. I'm not going to devalue it. I'm just going to buy the figure and put it on my display. And the fact that these things on Wrestle HQ were actually Lucy was a big help. And to be fair, I say a big help, like it's like, I'm going to really struggle mentally to open this box, but it does when you pay a lot of money for a figure. And 30, 40, 50 quid is a lot of money for a figure. When you pay for it, you pay that kind of money. I mean, bear in mind, we're talking about a toy. I understand, it's collectibles,
exactly.
The collectible thing, but we're talking about a toy. So when it's 30, 40, 50 quid for a figure, and then you open it up, you are devaluing it immediately. It's all right opening. I don't mind opening them. 20 quid, you buy them from B&M or whatever. But it frustrates me. So it's always good to to find them, Lucy. They're at the right price because they're not in the box. They come and you can just stick them straight on the shelf and it looks fantastic. But I missed out on. There were a couple actually. There was an NWA Dusty with all the belt and the complete bits that I wanted to get. I just literally missed out on that. Missed out on the Macho, and I actually had Nikolai in my cart. And as I went to pay, Nikolai had gone. So that was also annoying. The thing is with the Nikolai, there's a couple of placeholders that I've got in my Elite set. So I've got a Nikolai placeholder, but it's the Mattel figure, but with the Jack's jumper on rather than the Mattel coat and hat. I got it at a really good rate. And I'll be moving it on. I've been moving it on at a similarly good rate when I get a proper Nikolai. And I've also got who's the other one I got? Rick Martel. So again, I've got Rick Martel, but without the coat. So, I mean, it makes me laugh at that, though. Who's buying Rick Martel Legends? And, all right, they might have bought them when they were 15 or 20 quid 10 years ago. But who's buying a Rick Martel Legends and then taking all the entrance attire off it to have it as a ring-only figure?
It's crazy, but that's very it's very interesting that, because from an accessory basis, some of the accessories are actually worth more than the figure itself.
Oh my god!
So it's so shocking. I mean, and I look at it from a Hasbro basis. That all the Hasbros that I've got from my original collection, the majority have still got their weapons or their accessories with them, whether it be the Bossman's nightstick or Coco's bird or the wings on the dragon. But there are certain ones that I've got to look at picking up. Lucy, because I've lost them or whatever reason, the dogs chewed them up or all sorts of different things. So I currently don't own the Honky Tonk Man's guitar from Hasbro, and I also don't own the Macho King scepter. I have got one, but the top's come off it, so now it's currently posed upside down. It does look a bit weird, but yeah. So these things, but looking at buying them, they're like £15 to £20 each just for the Honky's guitar. And you begrudge it, and you're thinking that's just the smallest little bit of plastic that's just going to come in the post in a little jiffy bag, and it's worth 20 quid, and it guts you inside that you don't have it. But I absolutely hate to have to spend that money on something so small that someone's taken from a figure. It should come complete. It should come complete. So I'm always on the lookout.
And somewhere as well, the thing is with mine, because like I said, when I only dug my Lucy Hasbros out probably about 18 months ago, maybe not even that, about 18 months ago. But and it was when I moved house. Now the interesting thing is, somewhere in a little pot, I've got a pot of a lot of Hasbro accessories, and I can't find it. So, for example, I know I've got somewhere. I've got two of the demolition helmets, but I can only find one. So I ended up buying the other one, but so I've got my Hasbro.
How much did that cost you?
Oh, it wasn't a lot. I'll say it wasn't a lot. It was probably like £6, which is still more than the figure was in the first place, But it's bizarre, isn't it? But it's one of those where, I've got a complete Lucy set of Hasbros with quite a lot of with all the accessories. Some are repros. I've got a couple of repro bits that I don't mind. I don't mind it being a repro. It's not. I'm not that much of a completist that it freaks me out to have it. Bushwhacker hats from the second series of the Bushwhackers and things like that, repos. But things like Papa Shango's necklace, that was just around Papa Shango. In fact, I don't think I ever took it off. So I put it on when I bought it, and it stayed on. So when I open it up, there it was. Jim Duggan's flag for Jim Duggan 2. It's still in his arms. And interestingly enough, things like Razor's chains, all there. The dragon, that's another one. The dragon's wings, I never ever took them off me. It was only when I started collecting, I was like, why are all these wings missing? And then you've got people posing with the wings upside down. I never took the wings off. I didn't even know they could come off. So, my dragon was always always mint anyway. Yeah.
I was a bit weird, me, when I used to play with them, and when it came down to the dragon, I always used to have the wings upside down for his entrance, so the big fanfare peacock-esque for his entrance, and then he used to swap it so it was the other way around, so
Yeah.
they look like wings when he was flying off the top rope. So yeah, but a little bit of Tom Finkel weirdness for your Thursday morning. There you go.
It is. That's it. But the thing is, like talking about the Hasbro. Sorry, talking about Hasbros. The only one thing actually that's in my collection that is a custom figure is a 1-2-3 Kid. So I've got a 1-2-3 Kid, obviously the green card, on mint on card, and I think I paid £60 for it. I mean, that was it was about 5 years ago when I was sort of putting some MOC stuff together. So, but I just refused. Literally, the last figure that I needed for my Hasbro collection was the 1-2-3 Kid. So I bought a custom, and it wasn't a lot. It was about £30, and it does the job, you know. And I will get the proper one, but just when it comes in at a decent price. And I mean, certainly through lockdown, all figures are just ridiculous. The prices have gone through the roof, but
just completely shut up.
Unbelievable. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so that I will get a 1-2-3 Kid, a proper one. But at the moment, the custom, and I can't remember who I bought it off, but whoever I bought it off did a really good job of the custom, and that actually sits there quite close to the front of my collection, and it does the trick. But green cards is what we are going to have a little chinwag about today, Tom. Now we've heard your story about being finding the green cards in a little boutique toy shop, and nobody else had them. I never had them. I think I was actually out of collecting at the time. I think
94 was a bit of a weird year. So if you left around WrestleMania 9 time, which was
That's
93.
Right, yeah.
So you'll have been out of the loop by the time these bad boys. And I hasten to use the word "get released" because in so many places they weren't released. It was just through the luck of the gods that I sort of stumbled upon them in a little toy shop in Manchester. But yes, green cards are our major topic of the day today, and having a little look at it. I mean, just relating back to that and relating back to the value of figures that you were just talking about for your 1-2-3 Kid. I did a brief little exercise of looking up the different prices that they've gone for on selling markets, notably eBay, to have a look and see what they've gone for. Last month, a 1-2-3 Kid mint on card, and the card looks pretty decent. Couple of little lines. That was all. £713. £713. This 1-2-3 Kid. That is an incredible amount of money.
Unreal, just unreal. Now, I did read an article somewhere that what's actually happening is the people that are buying these things are the guys who are doing the the auctions, the eBay auctions.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, $2 a pop or £2 a place, and there are 100 places. So with well, actually, having said that, no, I mean you're only getting £200 out of that, aren't you? So you wouldn't be spending £700 to bring back a couple of £100. So maybe they're wrong. But yeah, I did see someone getting accused of pushing the prices up so that when they're putting them in their auctions. Bizarre. I don't know if that's the script or not. But what do you think? Why do you think they're so ridiculously expensive?
You've got to look at it from a collector's perspective. A lot of the people who collected Hasbros are our age, so they're sort of late 20s to mid to late 30s, and they can get pretty much everything else. If you're looking on a loose collection, you can pick them up cheap from a car boot sale. If you're just looking for that odd nostalgia hit, you can pick them up off selling sites. If you wanted to go further down the line and go towards the mint on card, then they're a little bit more expensive, but you're not looking into the hundreds for the basics line. But then you had this line at the end that were just unreleased in this country in retail stores and on a very, very limited basis for the rest of the world. So these figures were like rocking horse poop. You just couldn't get them at time of release. And when they went off any kind of shelves that they were on to begin with in 94, 95, their value just started creeping up and creeping up. And when as you highlighted a minute ago, once we all went into lockdown, the only thing that we could feasibly do is sit there and scroll through our phones. And eBay was a big thing to have a look at and think, oh yeah, I'd like that in my collection. Oh, we'd like that. Oh, we've got this and that and the other. So that's when buttons started getting pressed. And when buttons start getting pressed and figures start inflating and start going up, that's when the industry starts to boom. So we are currently in a boom. Now, it is cyclical, and that's like that with any business. It's cyclical. And as you look at the wrestling business as a whole up to now, we're in pretty much of a valley. But there have been those peaks in the late 80s with Hogan, in the late 90s with Austin, big peaks. So it could be that when we do see a different dip, or we see it leveling out, we could see the leveling out of the figure market. And obviously, once we come out of lockdown properly, I think it will start to level out a little bit more. Things will start to come down a little bit more, and if the industry does boom again, then they'll surge even more. So for those collectors out there, I'd say hang on a minute, hang on, just keep your money where it is. Maybe give it 6 months to a year, and then look again, see what the market value is.
There's a lot of sellers who might listen to this podcast who are going to despise you for having said that, Tom. But the thing is with it is that I find it really bizarre because, you know, you would think, wouldn't you, right, lockdown, and I did it, you know, lockdown, right, I'm not going to spend any money, we don't know how long this is going to last, so I need to keep hold of what we've got in the bank, blah, 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 blah. And I did really well. I did about 6 or 8 weeks where, you know, I literally logged out of my eBay account, didn't sort of really look much on Facebook and stuff, and then literally I started to, I think something came up that was something popped up on my Facebook that was seemingly quite a good buy, and I'll just grab that, and then I'll just grab this, and then next thing you know, I'm you know,
rolling.
neck deep.
You're rolling.
Neck deep into figures coming, you know. But it's just bizarre that something can be, you know, the 1-2-3 Kid, going back to the 1-2-3 Kid, that something could be so expensive for the, you know, for a little tiny figure, and I understand there's the value in terms of you know, the collector value and how rare it is, but like I'm talking slightly before the lockdown, if I remember rightly, this figure was sort of 250 quid, and I was really happy that it was that kind of money because, you know, like I say, I spent, I think it was 60 or maybe 70 quid on it. And I actually bought it from the guy I mentioned last week that I bought my mail away Hogan from, who is now recollecting. He sold all his stuff and then he's recollecting again. He's probably picked the worst time to recollect.
The worst time. That guy's got to be crying into his lockdown soup. Right.
He probably is. So having sold 1-2-3 Kid for whatever it was, like say 60 quid or whatever, 70 quid, and then he's gonna have to buy it back and they're going for upwards of £700. Is you know, and it tripled in price over lockdown. It's bananas. Now, and it's funny you mentioned about the dip because I've in my time of sort of being in and out of collecting. So when I started my Hasbro mint on cards in about let's see when that, like, so about 2014 or 15 and then I stopped. I was in that for about a year, stopped doing that, and then I got back in about 18 months ago, and unless I missed the trough, I never actually saw the dip at all. It was just, you know, it just seems to be gradually rising to the point then where when I said, well, I need 14 Hasbro MOCs to complete the collection, because I didn't complete them when I was doing it last time around, which I now wish I actually bloody did. But when I'm looking at the stuff, I'm kind of going, oh, I really wish I'd have done it, because the things that were £20 and £30 are now £80 and £90. I need a couple of Hogans. Yeah. As you know, I'm a big Hogan mark. I've got a lot of Hogan stuff going on. And I can't remember which ones I need. I think it might be 2 and 4 I need on card. And they're touching 100 quid each, and they were literally 30 or 40 quid each when I was collecting them years ago. And I'm proper kicking myself that I didn't continue to buy them. You know.
Yeah, there's that. It's that feeling that you have inside you when you look back and you go, I could have got it for that amount, and you didn't pull the trigger on it. And that's the mentality that I've got at the moment, is to just pull the trigger. So when the Mr. T came up and I was hesitating and you sort of pushed me over the edge, it was just a case of, yeah, we've got to pull the trigger. And pretty much within minutes of me purchasing it and me having the confirmation in my email, they were sold out. And I know how gutted I would have been if I hadn't have got it, to the point literally where I'd have spent over and above just to get it because I didn't get it the first time round. And it sends you nuts. It sends you absolutely bananas. So yeah, I didn't have that sensation when it came to my first line of green carded Hasbros, because as we've relayed before, I found them in a little boutique shop in Manchester. So let's look at the figures itself. Seven figures within the series. Series number 11 within the Hasbro line, released in 1994. And the 7 figures were Ludwig Borga with Finland finisher, Yokozuna with the Sumo Smash, Crush with the Kona Crusher, 1-2-3 Kid with 1-2-3 Punch, Adam Bomb with the Nuclear Knockout, Billy Gunn with the Cowboy Clobber, and Bart Gunn with the Rodeo Roundhouse. So, you have complete series of these, Lucy, I do believe, just with you 1-2-3 Kid being the custom.
Yeah.
You have the rest? Cool.
Yeah,
There's only 2 that I don't have. I don't have the Yokozuna and I don't have the Crush. And the story that I told in episode 1 is that I didn't pick those up because they were the only replicants from other series. They were the only repaints. So I wanted the original sets, so the ones that I'd never seen before, the Ludwigs and the Adam Bombs. I sort of put the Kona Crush and I put Yokozuna to the back of the line, as it were, and they just weren't available when I went back to go and get them. But having a look at those 2 figures first, which are the repaints, Yokozuna is one that strikes me and really niggles me each and every time I see it, because this is the one that's got the black and white tights.
Yep.
They are painted the wrong way round. So annoying. It's so annoying. Did you ever notice that?
I didn't know, because I never actually knew Yokozuna in black and white. He was always in red and white when I was watching. So
Yep.
and I didn't realise that this, I didn't, when I was collecting, when I was watching the first time round, I didn't realise this figure existed. So this was only something that I came across when I started to recollect. And it's funny you mention that though, because the red and white one is also the wrong way around colour wise, isn't it? So.
Yeah, very, very. It just niggled me and annoyed me. I mean, being a true sort of wrestling geek, Yokozuna appeared on the scene within the WWF in October time, 1992, and there's some rare pictures out there from a couple of rare dark matches, and it was all black attire that he had. So it was black pants and black belt. They were just a couple of dark matches that he performed in those. Then when he made his debut, his pay-per-view debut at the Survivor Series '92 against Virgil. And then subsequently, the 1993 Rumble that he won, he was in black and white. So it was the complete flip as to what the figure was actually produced in. Then after that, he moved on and did his red and black thing, which is what he became notable for. But it just really, really peeved me that they were the wrong way round. So the fact that he never actually wore the pants at all, not even one appearance, really, really got on my nerves. Anyway, that was the Yokozuna figure. That one was my hit a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about Hasbros, because I think that figure itself is incredible. The size of it was so different because Yokozuna was so much bigger than any other superstar. So I think they did it such justice by giving it its own mold completely and not going down the line of the Earthquake and the Typhoon, the Bam Bam Bigelow mold. Giving it its own mold, which was really, really nice. The way that the figure twisted as well, so you could line up the bow at the back. I always thought that was interesting and different. Being very, very sort of OCD as a kid, it always had to line up perfectly. The head sculpt on it was fantastic as well. The action, which was the arms up and down, was great. The only thing I would have changed from a Yoko basis, and I think you touched on it on one episode, was possibly having articulated hip joints and leg joints so you could do the big leg drop with him. That would have been awesome to include. Yeah.
You get it on the ropes and do a banzai drop off the rope or something like that would be, it'd be a good little playability thing. But yeah, I think they got it spot on, and I think that I think the red and white, the black and white variant is it's a decent enough. It's a decent enough variant to make you want to have it separately to the to figure number 1, but it just does kind of bug me a little bit. I wonder why. Black paint must have been cheaper. It must have been so much cheaper to paint everything in black and just put a little bit of red or a little bit of white, because they've literally done that with both figures. It's bizarre.
Very interesting, and a point that I never even thought about. Looking at it from a mint on card basis, and looking at it from a card shot, that particular pose was the same pose that they used on the red card series. So it's exactly the same, and I can't remember if there were any others that they used the exact same picture of the superstar on a card. Can you remember any that are exactly the same between the series?
Well, the only other one I can actually think of is Crush. Weirdly enough, so
Oh yeah, and we're going to talk about that, and that is a proper pet peeve of mine. Yeah, we'll go into that in a minute.
like,
Don't
what is
get me
that
started on that. Oh, so we're going to move from the Yokozuna. Now, out of 10, let's rate these. Out of 10, what would you rate the Yokozuna white and black green card figure?
I think it's a solid 7. You know, I think it's a solid 7. I think I think Yokozuna, the first one, is probably an 8.5. It's a very strong figure, and I think that the only reason I give it a 7 is because effectively laziness, because they did a repaint. But I think it's still a strong figure. I'd give it a 7.
Okay, cool. I was going to go down the 6 line, only on the basis that I'd got a complete 5 from being an amazing figure to begin with, and then sloppiness came in when it came to box art, and it came into the actual colour line as to how it was produced. So I was going 6, you going with the 7, so it falls to a nice little average of 6.5. All right, that's our rating from the UK Wrestling Figure Podcast, 6.5 on a Yokozuna Series 11. So, as we were talking about the repaints, we started with Yoko. Let's move on to Kona Crush. Crush was always one of my favourites growing up, being sort of 8 and 9 when he came back after the Demolition stint as Hawaiian Crush. It was the vibrance of the colours that really sort of attracted me to that particular character. The fact that he had the big blonde mullet, and this was a superior mullet. This was not just some nickel and dime, sort of just a little bit of long hair in the back. This was big bouffant at the front, very short sides, and massive, massive drops down the back. This mullet was sensational. Joe Exotic would be proud of this mullet. What a legend. So yes.
Were you watching when he was in Demolition?
So I came on board by the time Demolition had left. So I sort of really came in SummerSlam 91, Survivor Series 91 time. Really, really excelling sort of Royal Rumble 92 time. Really, really into it by then. So everything had gone from Demolition because they sort of petered out around WrestleMania 7, but being the sort of the interest was so peaking that I was picking up all the tapes. So whenever my grandparents were out shopping, it was like, can you get me a wrestling video? And they'd come back with some random stuff, and that's where you get introduced to it, and then you fall in love with characters that you hadn't seen before, sort of the original series of Demolition. So, and then it's finding out, oh, there was 3 of them, and when did he come in? And oh, he's bigger than the other ones, and this, that, and the other. So knowing Crush from Demolition, and obviously had seen the Hasbro that was produced in that line, very, very turned on to that character. And then the original figure that they released within the yellow card range of Crush was spot on. I thought that was really, really well done. But then as you progress through onto green card series, as you've just alleviated to, just the box art, it is my biggest pet peeve. Why have they used an old product placement shot of Crush? No goatee, old attire, still the face when you're producing a heel product. It is the worst. That is the worst for me. What do you think?
I wonder if the people who are producing the toys fully understand what's going on with the character within the actual wrestling product itself. So did they understand that this is now, that it was a babyface character when we took that shot. Now he's a bad guy, so that's why he looks different, and that's why his attire is different. Or did they just think, oh well, this is him in full purple, not purple and yellow, and so it's okay to use that? Did they understand that that's what was going on? That's what I've always wondered by it. I think that maybe
but
the
just
people
so weird.
producing the toys,
just so odd. Just so odd. It would have just been the same, but just because it's a character change, they could have put a Demolition Crush on the box, and it had just been as relevant as the picture that they used. because by the time we came down the line and Crusher turned heel on the Macho Man, he had the full goatee, and then he had the face paint on as well. So, in fairness, if they'd have used the Demolition Crush picture, it'd have probably been more lifelike because he had full face paint on in that particular shot. So, it just nerks me. It really, really does. With why they didn't do that, because obviously as that goes down the line to sculpting and to the actual production of the toy, they must have sent production shots down to Hasbro to say, that is what I want you to make. That is the figure I want you to make. That is the character I want you to make, and it looks like that. And to then release it with just such an old box art, oh, guts me every time. Really annoys me. There we go. So yeah, so from that basis, from the Kona Crush basis, they fell down on the actual box art, but the figure itself is a cracking looking figure. They did really, really well with the goatee. The attire was very good with the nice purples and the silvers integrated, and I wasn't mad at them that they used the same actual move that they used in the original Crush, because that suplex move was my all-time favorite within the Hasbro line. That was my all-time favorite positioning, because you have Mr. Perfect that had it, Hogan had it for one of his lines, and I just love that particular one. What did you think of that actual shot?
Again, it was. I think they did a great job with the repaint. Again, but like I say, I wasn't collecting it at the time. So as a kid, sometimes I think when we got the same figure again, I was quite often disappointed. Even being a big Hogan fan, the fact we had like 3, 4, and then even a mail away Hogan, it did wind me up. But with the actual from a collector's point of view, I think the repaint is really cool. It's actually, if you look at Crush, you look at Evil Crush as they call it, or Heel Crush, the character, when you go back on the network and then you look at the figure, it's quite possibly one of the better figures in terms of a representation throughout almost the entire line. It's not the best one, but I think in terms of, it's certainly one of the best repaints. But I think it's just in terms of how it looks compared to the character, it's pretty strong.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree with that. And if you bear in mind as well that if they'd have released that figure within the Series 10 or Series 9 range in that particular attire with better box art, that would have been one of my all-time favourites. I'd have loved that figure more than anything, because I think they did it justice really, really well. They did the character really, really well. Just weird how they pick these particular characters. It's very strange as you look into it, that these characters must have been sort of top of the line when it came to it in late 1993 when they must have picked them. Late 93, yeah, it must have been late 93 because Ludwig Borger was gone by early 94. He was way out of the picture there. He was actually meant to face Lex Luger at WrestleMania 10, but got completely shelved before that, which ultimately led to Lex having match against Yoko, double winning the Rumble. That's wrestling knowledge, and we are talking about figures, not wrestling knowledge. So what would you rank it anyway? What would you rank this figure?
I'd be giving that a 7 again. I'm quite happy with me 7s. So I think Crush should get a 7, maybe a bit more. In fact, I tell you what, I'm going to give Crush. I'm going to give Evil Crush an 8.
Very good. I'm going to give Evil Crush a 7. That, you know what this means? I am the worst critic. I am more critical of it than you. And you know what? The figure itself is everything for the 7. The box art is what's let it down completely for me, and has ultimately dropped it 3 points, because I think it is a cracking figure. So yes, 7. So we're going to meet in the middle, 7.5. Boom. That is the official rating of the UK Wrestling Figure Podcast for Series 11 Crush. Right, so we've done the repaints, we've done the reissues. Let's get on to the new figures that were released in this series, and one that we touched upon that you've got the custom of that's just soared in value, £713 on eBay last week. The 123 Kid. The 123 Kid. What do you think?
I tell you what, in terms of a paint job, I think it's phenomenal. Yes. I think it's a really, really, really good paint job. One of the better figures, I think, in terms of the detail, because it's not, a lot of the figures are block color stuff. There's not loads of figures with loads of detail on, and because this has got effectively all the sort of decals, I think it probably for Hasbro was probably one of the harder ones to do in terms of a paint job. But I've got to be honest, I think it's mega. I don't like the action. The action itself I always thought was a bit unusable. that headlock kind of thing going on. Only certain wrestlers you could get the head in there. So it's one of those when playability is not as good as the aesthetics. And from a figure collector, the aesthetics are obviously the most important thing. That's what I look for. As a kid, I didn't have it as a kid, but obviously I had the Rick Rude and the Ric Flair. Playability, not very great, but aesthetics, fantastic.
Brilliant. Well, just working on that, I always thought that they released this figure with that particular action because 1-2-3 Kid was such a smaller sized guy than the typical, and because that figure is the mold of it is so slender, because Rick Rude back in the day was very sort of svelte and toned, but he was really thin when it came to his waist. That's why they produced it for Rick Rude. Why they used it on Ric Flair, I've got no idea. But I thought they did a good job by picking that one for the 1-2-3 Kid, because if you look at other ranges, whether it be the punch action, whether it be the suplex action, whether it be the jumper, he would have been too bulky. So I think the choice was very, very well done by Hasbro, but as you say, the playability on that particular mold was a bit of a nuisance. The figure itself, again, I echo your sentiments. Very, very well done with all the different decals that they used within the actual presentation. Because if you look at other figures that were released down the line that could have used the airbrushing art that we now see on the Mattels, people like Rick Rude, where they just used purple and black within the swirls of his tights. You look at the Ultimate Warrior that featured all those amazing different airbrushed artworks on his trunks, and they never used any of those within the production because it would have been too much to produce them. To have the very in-depth detail within the 1-2-3 Kid was amazing. I thought that was really, really good. The other thing as well that also tickled me growing up was just the ugliness of the head sculpt. And that's it. I mean, Sean Waltman's one of those characters that'll go down in infamy as being just an absolute legend with everything that he's done, whether or not he's the Lightning Kid or the 1-2-3 Kid or X-Pac, Six-Pack, all the different incantations and incarnations that he's had over his career and the phenomenal talent that he is. When he came into the picture, he wasn't the best looking dude. So the head sculpt that they used for him and they made for him was, pretty shocking. But it fit within the mold and it fit within the character that he was. So, a definite thumbs up for that figure. To say that the value on it has literally skyrocketed is a thing of beauty. To say that I own one, it's mad, but we love it. If I've got something that's worth that, I'll take it.
Absolutely.
When you look at box art as well, this is one of the funnier ones because Sean Waltman actually had this photo shoot done the day after he had his eyebrows shaved by, reportedly by Mr. Perfect. So it's just so weird that these figures are now worth an absolute bomb that when people go and meet him at conventions, he's got to sign a picture with his eyebrows shaved. That's the thing. It's chaos. But great picture, iconic picture. Again, and it's something that I highlighted in past episodes when utilising shots, photo shots. I always like them to be an in-studio pose as opposed to an in-ring action pose. I don't know why that is, but it just again a little weird OCD thing. I always got drawn more to the figures that had the particular photo shoot pose, and it was weird because I always used to love that when I used to collect wrestling stickers back in the day. I always used to love the pose shots more than the in-action shots. So thought they did really, really well with that. The overall presentation of it was great. The fact that we had a brand new figure within the line as well. I mean, ultimately we had 5 new figures, but to say that it was a new one that none of us had from was a definite hit. What would you rate it? What would you rate it out of 10?
I'd give it a 7. I'd give it a 7 from the fact, for me, that it's probably higher than a 7 aesthetically, but from a kid's point of view, it's probably not quite as playable as you'd want it to be. So I think for 1-2-3 Kid, for me, a 7.
Okay, all right. Well, seeing as I was going to be the harsh critic before on the past 2, this one has definitely piqued my interest. 9.5 out of 10.
Wow, that's half a point off perfect.
Half a point off perfect, and we all know that 10 is reserved for Kurt Hennig. That's it. So. So 9.5. So relating to 9.5 and a 7, we're gonna work out to like an 8.25. So let's call it an 8 as our overall love for that particular 123 kid figure from the UK Wrestling Podcast. Official rating 123 kid. Green card, Series 11 gets an 8. That is a heavy amount. That's great. Brilliant. So as we move from the 123 kid, which was a face at the time, let's move on to a heel. So let's talk about Ludwig Borger. What do you know about Ludwig Borger? Had you gone completely by the time that Ludwig had come onto the scene?
No, I think he was in as I was going. I definitely watched him, so he was definitely there or thereabouts. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, I actually think it's a strong figure. Again, I think it's one of those, isn't it? You know, what's he got? He's wearing a black leotard with, you know, a bit of a white patch and a blue cross, a bit of a Finnish sort of flag kind of thing going on. So in terms of its look towards the actual wrestler itself, fantastic. I think the head sculpt is really cool, and I think the action's probably spot on. You know, he was a big guy, big strong fella. I think the sort of gorilla press slam thing probably suits it quite well. What do you think?
Absolutely, completely agree. It was the perfect action for him. Gorilla press slam, being known for his powerlifting. Tony Haim came on board as Ludwig Borger after the powerlifting scene, and that action, notable for the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan, was perfect for that particular figure. The mold itself was brilliant that they used. The singlet was perfect in terms of his attire. It was a nice basic attire, so black singlet with Finnish flag. Head sculpt was brilliant. The only thing that gets me on this particular head mold was that, and you'll find this as well, when you position it in a collection, there are certain parts that color warp a little more than others, and this particular figure really got to me because the body was one tone and the head was a different tone. So the head was sort of more white than the cream chest. So that bugged me a little bit. But
interesting.
In terms of the overall presentation, very, very strong. The box art again on this one was great. In shot, photos, studio shot, brilliant. Looked really, really good. Looked really, really attractive to a buyer. Again, new figure within the line. So Corkin, all thumbs up from me. The only letdown was the actual the material that they used within the heads and the bodies. That just made it very, very different. When you look at it, just a little bit weird. So rating wise, what are you thinking?
I'm gonna go. I'll give it a 7.
7. Okay, I was going to go 7.5. So yeah, let's call it a nice 7. Very good score again. So up to now, 123 Kid has been top of the pack when it comes to the Green Card Series 11s from our perspective. But Ludwig Borger, big 7 from the UK Wrestling Figure Podcast. Perfect. So we go from a heel. Let's go to a couple of faces. Billy and Bart Gunn. Let's have a chat about the one, Mr. Ass, badass himself, leader of the Gun Club, Billy Gunn. Can't believe he's still around, still rocking the party and looking the part as well. Massive guy, big personality, big physique. Never known as a guy on the mic, but always had that big presence all the way around. So dating back to 1993 when they made their debut, all the way through to 2020. What's that? 27 years, and obviously he'll been on the independents before that. So he's got to be looking at a 30-year career. That's phenomenal for the lad. Good on him.
Well, yeah, that's Undertaker territory, isn't it? So
it is. Yeah.
But it's funny actually because they were in just as I was sort of leaving. I don't think they didn't have a match at WrestleMania 9, did they?
No, they didn't. They didn't have a match at WrestleMania. No.
But they were definitely doing the superstars stuff as I was kind of backdooring the wrestling scene back in the early 90s. But it's funny actually. I watched. What did I watch last night? Was it? No, it wasn't. It was SummerSlam. I think it might be SummerSlam '95.
Okay.
And they were on there. I watched their match. And it's one of them. I actually watched it with my daughter, and weirdly, my daughter's 4, and my daughter really loves it, so she sits and watches it with me. I watched their match. A great tag team, and I think again, it's one of those where, what more can you ask from a figure. It's if you, and it goes. This actually goes for both figures, but when you look at a figure, and let's say even Virgil, right? Virgil as a figure, very very plain figure. He's got his trunks on, but that's it. That's what he wore. There's nothing. That's how he came to the ring, and that's how that was his actual ring attire. So with the smoking guns, all right, that's what we get from the figure is what we got from the wrestler. Do you know what I mean? There, they can't. Yeah. There's nothing more they can give us. So although yes, it's pretty plain, it's got some blue jeans and it's got the hat. Would the hat have been better as a removable accessory? Arguably, yes, it would. But the reality is, like I say, what more could they give us? It represents the wrestler really well.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point that you just raised in regards to the hat, because that was one of the things that I wanted to discuss. Obviously, with the big cowboy gimmick and how they came to the ring, thought it was fine in terms of the presentation. Thought that the action that they gave was decent, because as you look through the series, I don't think they had any repeats, did they? Crush and Adam Bomb had the same suplex action. That's fine
in the same series. That should be a point deductor, really. But
yeah. So we'll look at that as we come to Adam in very very soon. But you had Billy Gunn with the punch action. You had Bart Gunn, which had the clothesline action. Crush and Adam Bomb with the suplex. 1, 2, 3 Kid with the head punch. Yokozuna, just the big hefty figure that he was. Ludwig Borger with the gorilla press slam. What other actions were they missing in that particular line? I'm just trying to think if there was anything. No, there was no jumper in that series.
There wasn't, no.
But I thought that the use of the different specific action shots were fine. I thought that was really really good that they didn't go too top heavy on one particular line. So that was fine. I was happy with that. The hat mold, I thought the hat could have been removable. I thought that as an accessory would have been better that it was. The thing as well that grated on me a little bit, I like the differentiation in the tag teams when it came to different particular actions. However, when you look at Billy, he's not got any vest on. Yeah. But when you look at Bart, he's got his vest moulded on. So that just irked me a little bit, being a particular. I thought either have them both with it on, both without it on, or what I thought would have been nice was the fact that they produced the details for the Undertaker trench coat, the actual fabric trench coat. They could have done that in a white or a beige, which was their actual entrance attire. I thought that'd have been great to include that within it. But again, too much money that had probably gone into production of that particular figure when they were coming to the end of their line. So yeah, I thought Billy was really, really good. The fact that he's got the Fu Manchu mustache, thought that was great. Thought that was excellent. Big blonde mullet with a big cowboy hat, brilliant. Faultless, really, for me. Apart from the hat, that was the only thing that let it down. So for me, ranking wise, I'd go for a 7.5 on that. What are you saying?
Oh, really? Right. Okay. Yeah, I would have gone probably closer to a 6, I think.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go 6.5. 6.5 overall rating. Box art looked great as well. I didn't touch on the box art. Fantastic looking shot of the one there of Mr. Ass in the pre-DX days. It's very iconic and old school nostalgia for those that watched in the very early 90s. Thought it did really, really well. And as a tag team, they definitely deserve to have a figure produced. As you go forward into the Jax line and even the Mattel line, obviously we've had Billy's, but we've never had a Bart. Very interesting.
Indeed.
So
and also in the in the Mattel line, we've never therefore had smoking guns. There's some really good customs actually. The smoking guns in an elite form knocking about.
Oh, okay, cool.
There's some really good customs, but I think a smoking guns tag team is required. Mattel, if you're listening again.
I think so, and I think on a basis of Bart as a person, I don't think he'd be against signing on for a Legends deal. But it's whether or not they want to invest and whether or not they see any kind of marketability in him. But from a collector's perspective, it'd be good to have a smoking guns.
You could do a Bart Gun Butterbean 2-pack.
There you go. That'd be epic. That'd be epic. Well, you see, it opens up the doors to a lot of different things.
Indeed it does, yeah.
So from Bartgun against Butterbean, let's go to Bartgun in the green card range. With Rodeo Roundhouse, which was the clothesline action, I thought this figure was great. I thought this one was better than the Billy. Awesome black hair. Again, molded hat, which was the only sort of niggle for me. I'd have put both of them in the vest. I like the way that it looks within the vest.
Me too.
The card itself, the box art on the card, again, perfect. Iconic for the time. Very, very good. Your thoughts on this one?
Snap. Yeah, there isn't really much more to say. I think I would have done them both with the vest on, but other than that, I think, like I say, what more can you ask? They look very much like or as close to the actual character as you could get from a figure. Not particularly, exciting or vibrant figures, but that's not. We can't judge the figure based on the it's not got bright green tassels hanging from his.
Exactly. If that's not the character, that's not the character.
Exactly. So I would like I say, I would have put them both in the vest, but I would have said that Bart Gunn bit better than the Billy Gunn, and I'd probably rate that as a 7.
Yeah, I was going for an 8. So let's go at a 7.5 official UK Wrestling Figure Podcast rating.
Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. Which brings us all the way around to our final figure, and this could really top the 1-2-3 kid for me, the Adam Bomb figure. Adam Bomb was a big character for me that I thought could have gone all the way. He had all the different tools, whether it be agility, size, look, presence, charisma. He had every box ticked that Vince McMahon looked for in a superstar. They gave him the Adam Bomb gimmick, and in fairness, what he did with it was really, really good. I thought Brian Clark smashed it out of the park with this particular presentation. And when they gave him the different coloured eyes, which I'd never seen before, I'd never seen coloured contact lenses. So when I looked at that was incredible. The fact that he had the tattoo that said Adam Bomb, it was like, this guy's, it's real. This is real. And obviously when you're 8 and you do believe and it is real to you, you're thinking, oh my goodness, this is unbelievable. So everything ticked the boxes for this particular figure for me. The colour on his attire, again, very, very vibrant, very colourful, very different than everybody else. So in the production that Hasbro did, they did an amazing job of making it look sensational. The goggles that he wore, brilliant as well. I'm glad that they included them because of the different eye colour that he had. I think it'd have been so difficult to produce a figure that's only 4.5 inches tall with the eyes that would be perfect. So by incorporating the goggles, thumbs up. Box art, incredible. Great job that they did there. Your thoughts? What are you thinking?
I think one of the best figures in the line aesthetically, and also playability is good as well because of the action. But yeah, again, it's one of those where they've gone to some real effort with his attire, like I said, the goggles, the look of the whole figure. It sits so well in a display as well. It really pops. I think it's it was a great swan song of a figure, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely echoing exactly what you just said. The only letdown for me was something that I've just highlighted on, which was his big Adam Bomb tattoo. That is the only omission from the figure that lets it down for me. So for me, that is a 9.5, same as the 1-3 kid.
Interesting, right? Okay. See, I would have gone for that. I would have gone probably an 8.5.
An 8.5. Right, there you go. 9 is the official UK Wrestling Figure Podcast rating of the Adam Bomb, which makes it the best figure in our opinion in the line. And I'm happy that it felt like that because that is a corking figure. That is an absolute beauty of a figure. Happy to have it within my collection. Was overwhelmed, and it was the first one that I bought back with my dad in the Corn Exchange in Manchester. That was the first one that I saw behind the counter, up on the pegs. That was the one that I had to have first. So yes, that is a 9, a solid 9, and good on him. Brilliant, fantastic. Now, when you look at other Adam figures that are released down the line, Adam Bomb figures. The only other one that I believe that they were produced, apart from the WCW Toy Biz range when he was Wrath, was the Classic Superstars, and that's a brilliant figure as well. Have you got that in your collection?
I haven't. No, I'm. It's kind of on the hit list, but it's one of those where I wouldn't buy the Classic Superstars one if we got a Mattel.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of I'm kind of holding out ish for a Mattel, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I think as well. I mean, and it's when they go out of the spotlight, particular superstars and personalities go different ways. They either succeed in other areas, or they live off past fame, or they just deplete into nothing. And it's unfortunate that for Brian Clark, who had so much potential, has gone down a number of different shady lines, and he's in trouble with police at the moment. So I don't think the WWE will be touching him with a 10-foot barge pole right now. So so there we go. So I'm glad to have the Hasbro. I'm glad that I did have the classic superstars, albeit I sold that entire line. But Adam Bomb was one of my nice little favourites during my nine-year-old phase. So brilliant. So wrapping up the line, overall the complete line itself, 7 figures, plus they had the yellow King of the ring within that series as well. Do you own this one?
I don't know. Do you?
No, I never did. And what guts me, as you alluded to before, when you didn't pull the trigger on it, I remember seeing that yellow ring at a very small little like craft fair at my local church hall. Somebody had it, and it was on the floor, complete. Remember, it had the flag and the ring ropes. Everything looked great. It was yellow. I walked past it, and I'm like, Mum, I've not got that one. I've not got that one. You don't need another ring. Oh no!
Can you
Gutted.
imagine? Can you imagine? I mean, even a couple of years ago when it was, I can't remember what it was, a couple of £100. I should have pulled the trigger then, because again that's gone through the roof. But I don't have one. I've got a spare blue one, and I'm kind of half thinking to spray it up and get the custom stickers for it and give it a go. Yeah. I might do it for the sake of what it is. But yeah, a great looking piece is that King of the Ring.
Yeah, I like the box art as well with the Bret Hart and the Yokozuna on it. I thought that was very good. I'm always attracted to the cartoon-esque pictures, the actual physically drawn pictures of superstars, and I thought they did really, really well with this one. I thought that was great.
There was a rumor that was supposed to be a Hulkamania ring.
Well, you know what? It'd fit, wouldn't it? It would fit with the colour. Yeah. Why produce a yellow ring? And I think as well that as we walked past it and sort of I'm sort of with my mum or I think it was my mum and both my nanas, and we were looking at it and it was like, oh, you don't need another ring. I think if it was a case of Hulk Hogan was more prominent when it came out, I'd have probably urged to get it, but I just didn't understand why it was yellow. Yeah. So it was just very an odd one, but has become quite iconic within the collecting community for what it is. What would you rank that one then? Seeing as we were doing rankings, what would you?
I'd have given it an 8. I'd have given it an 8. The only, do you know what annoys me? It actually isn't the ring fault. I don't know if you've actually got these cabinets, but the Detolfs that everyone uses from IKEA, which I use, the bloody Hasbro rings don't fit in them.
Oh, nightmare!
So my Hasbro ring currently sits on top of that, so it's really annoying, because I would have liked to have had them inside the cabinet, but you can't blame Hasbro for that.
No, exactly.
30 years later,
everybody blames IKEA. Let's blame IKEA.
30 years later, IKEA wouldn't create the correct size cabinet, but yeah, I think I'd give it an 8. I think it's a good looking piece of kit.
Good. Looking back on it. I'd give it an 8 as well. Let's do that.
There you go. So the ring scores an 8.
Super duper. Right, so as we go on, I definitely consider that then a hit. And considering, as we're talking about hits, let's look into our feature, which is hit and miss.
Indeed.
Now, last week I did a hit. I did the Ultimate Warrior Ultimate Edition. Do you want to talk about your hit first, and then I'll go into my miss?
Yeah, my hit, a bit of an odd one. We've mentioned in the past that we don't really get much in the way of managers and that kind of thing going on. And one of the ones that I'm just looking up now, actually, at my collection, and one of the managers that I've got that I think is a massive, massive hit, is the Mattel Elite Jimmy Hart.
Okay, that's great. That's the Hall of Fame Series 3? Hall of Fame Series 3, Jimmy Hart.
Yeah, I don't know which series it is, but it is a Hall of Fame one, yes. A white jacket with the red hearts, megaphone, the face scan, the head scan's fantastic. It's everything you'd ask for from a figure. And I think,
it's excellent.
This is the thing, they don't need to rewrite the rule book. Pick a head scan that is that's a facial expression that's obviously related to them, a decent enough attire, and a decent accessory. And yeah, to be honest, I've got nothing more to say about the fact, other than the fact that on the front, what I've done is in my collection, I've kind of put all the tag teams that were managed by Jimmy Hart around the Jimmy Hart figure. So I've got the Hart Foundation on one side, I've got Nasty Boys on the other, I've got Natural Disasters behind them, Mega Maniacs behind them. So it's kind of like this little Jimmy Hart section, and it's all surrounded by Jimmy holding his megaphone in the air. It works so well. It pops in that little sort of collection of figures there. I think it's great.
Brilliant. Well, that is a corking figure. It was Hall of Fame Series 3, which was also released with the Macho King and the $1 Million Man. Came with Jimmy Hart, and the Cactus Jack, which I actually own, was the one that was scrapped from the series. So, big thumbs up from me as well for that particular figure. That was your hit. So, seeing as that was your hit, let's go into my miss. My miss comes from the Jax range this week. And it comes from the Deluxe Classic Superstars range.
Interesting.
This is a little range that that it was phenomenal, because it's all the articulation of the current Elite series, but it was done within the Classic Superstar range. And they released a number of different figures in different attires. So they had the British Bulldog done with the sort of the 1996-97 trunks, the Union flag trunks, as opposed to the big long pants, which is featured on all other figures. They did an NWO Razor Ramon within this set as well, which I thought was very cool. And Outsiders Kevin Nash. But one of the figures that they did from a collector's basis, and it's a 1 of 100, was the Rowdy Roddy Piper figure, where it is the WrestleMania 6 attire, half white, half black. It's not a miss in terms of the actual look of the figure. It comes with a fabric Hot Rod t-shirt and a fabric kilt as well, which aren't on the figure itself in the actual box. They come separately, which I like. The fact that they produced a figure that is so discriminatory, I've no idea why they actually did the blackface figure. It's just mad. It's crazy that they actually thought that people would want this within their collection. And I think that's probably why they made it a 1 of 100. So it is so rare to have. But just such a weird choice. Just a very, very weird choice. Hey, it's a wrestling figure podcast. Who knew that we'd be talking about racial connotations and current society? But there you go. So they are your hit and misses for this week. Did you want to do a fantasy figure?
Yeah, let's do a fantasy figure. You give us a fantasy figure this week, Tom.
Okay, so seeing as we're talking about the Hasbro cards, seeing as we're a little bit further down the line when it came to sort of 93 and 94, there were a couple of notable omissions. But what I always thought we could have had within that particular line was announcers. I would have absolutely loved to have had a Hasbro Bobby Heenan. That would have been amazing. Yeah. That would have been amazing. And considering at this time that he was sort of leaving the WWF, heading over to WCW, to have a Bobby Heenan within the line would have been phenomenal. Now, Hasbro didn't touch upon any announcers. They didn't touch upon any managers. They just went down for the Superstars route. Fine. LJN, on the other hand, had already produced a Bobby Heenan figure. And as we progressed into the Classic Superstars range from Jax, they produced a Bobby Heenan figure. Now from Mattel, we've had a number of different incantations of Bobby Heenan, but that'd have been awesome to have the Hasbro Bobby Heenan. That'd have been the one for me. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of a fantasy figure, I think a Hasbro Heenan is absolutely the way to go on that kind of thing. You know, my fantasy figure is a Slick. And I think that I'd like to see a Slick either in a Hasbro, but I think probably more in the Mattel Elite line. I think we need to have a Slick in there.
That'd be cool to put with your boss man and a Nakeem. That'd be great.
Unbelievable. I mean, Slick was such an amazing character, and you know the fact that did we get a Jax Slick?
No, we didn't have a Jack Slick. Yeah, we didn't have a Hasbro, but we did have an LJN Slick.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So to not have a Slick for 30 years nearly, in fact more than 30 years, is a bit odd. Has he fallen out with the WWE, or is he still part of the? Is he?
Slick's a bit of a strange character, and not strange in terms of being weird, but Slick is a genuine reverend. So he's a genuine man of the cloth that doesn't tend to make that many wrestling appearances nowadays. I think the last time that he appeared for the WWE was like 2014 on an episode of Raw Old School. So it was quite a while ago, but I mean, they had the Mattel range by then, so there's no reason why in that time they couldn't have signed on for a Legends deal, because all it is his likeness. Realistically, it's not as if they've got to do anything particular, but it's whether or not he wants to lend his license and lend his image to something that he doesn't completely agree with nowadays. So
maybe.
Bit of a strange subject, and it's one of the big things as well. Why I'm just trying to think. There was another character that didn't want to do it on that basis. Bruno Sammartino. It took ages to get Bruno Sammartino back into the WWE fold because he didn't like the overall presentation. He was not into the Attitude Era at all. Thought it was tawdry. Thought it was lewd. Thought it was crude. Didn't want his likeness to be anything associated with it. And he only really came back in line with it when sort of Triple H really got into his skin, and he formed a lasting bond with Triple H. So a bit of an odd one, Slick, but I would echo those sentiments, and that has been a big phrase of the day. I echo your sentiments, mate. I would love to have a Slick in the line, definitely.
There we go.
So they are our fantasy figures for this week, guys. So now we've gone way over the hour mark, which is what we usually stick to. So we did mention at the top of the show that we were going to have a little look at the unproduced Orange Card Series 12 from Hasbro. So let's put a pin in that. Let's look at that next week and see exactly what was planned, what was coming up, what didn't get released and should have got released, the different production shots that we've got, the different prototype heads from all the different figures that we've seen come out of nowhere in the past. Let's look at that next week. Is there anything that you wanted to say to anybody before we disappear?
No, absolutely not. I am. I'm all out for the week. So yeah, over to you, Tom, for the outro.
Amazing. So thank you so much for joining us. As always, we are currently on YouTube and on Facebook. You can find us there under the UK Wrestling Figure Podcast links. Log on, send us those thumbs up, send us those likes, send us your comments in the YouTube video. We will be going live on Spotify and on iTunes very, very soon. It's something that we are looking on. We'd just like to get a nice little bank of episodes under our belt before we went down that route to give you guys the content that you deserve on your rides home from work or to work, and hopefully it won't be putting you to sleep at nighttime. So on behalf of Steve Taylor, thank you so much as always, mate, for joining us. My name is Tom Finkill. Thank you so much. Keep collecting, keep yourselves fresh, and keep it minty fresh in those boxes. We will see you next week. Have a good week, guys. Good night.